What if everything you believed about success was a trap? We live in a world that glorifies productivity. Hustle culture tells us that the harder we work, the more valuable we become. Every waking moment should be optimized, every action should serve a purpose, and rest is seen as a weakness rather than a necessity. But what if this endless pursuit of achievement wasn't making us stronger, but breaking us? Philosopher Byung-Chul Han argues that modern society has turned us into self-exploiting machines. Unlike past societies, where people were oppressed by external forces, kings, rulers, dictators, today's oppression is different. We no longer need external masters. We have become our own tyrants. Han calls this the age of achievement society, a world where we are constantly trying to improve, compete, and prove our worth. But there is a cost. This relentless drive for success leads to something far worse than exhaustion. It leads to burnout, anxiety, and alienation. But here's the real question. If burnout is the disease of modern society, is there a cure? This is where Han's philosophy takes a dark turn, because the problem isn't just about overwork. It's about how we have been conditioned to believe that our worth is measured by our output. So, are we truly free? Or have we simply become prisoners of our own ambition? We'll break down exactly how modern society manipulates us into burning ourselves out and why we willingly accept it. Imagine a prison with no walls, no guards, no chains. A place where people believe they are free, where they willingly walk into their cells, lock the doors behind them, and throw away the key. This, Byung-Chul Han argues, is the reality of modern society. Unlike past generations, we are not ruled by dictators or forced into labor. Instead, we are trapped by something far more deceptive: self-exploitation. Here's where it gets terrifying. We don't need an oppressive system to control us, we control ourselves. We willingly overwork. We set impossible expectations. We pressure ourselves to be more productive, more successful, more optimized. And we do all of this not because someone forces us to, but because we believe it's the right thing to do. This is what Han calls the shift from disciplinary society to achievement society. In a disciplinary society, people were controlled by external forces, laws, punishments, and restrictions. You knew who your oppressor was. In an achievement society, we believe we are free, but we have simply internalized the pressure. We push ourselves to exhaustion, not realizing that we have become both the master and the slave. And the worst part, burnout isn't seen as a problem. It's seen as proof of dedication. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. I only slept 3 hours last night. I haven't taken a vacation in years. I'm always busy. These aren't complaints, they are flexes. Think about social media. How often do you see posts about relaxation? About taking it slow? Hardly ever. Instead, we glorify people who wake up at 4 a.m., grind through endless work, and hustle their way to success. But here's the question. What happens when the system we trust to reward us for our hard work never delivers the happiness it promised? Because this is the real absurdity of achievement society. No matter how much you accomplish, it is never enough. The finish line keeps moving. The goalposts shift. The moment you succeed, a new challenge appears. And so you keep running until your mind, body, and spirit collapse from exhaustion. And when that happens, society doesn't blame the system. It blames you. You should have worked harder. You weren't disciplined enough. You just need better time management. This is the greatest trick modern society has ever pulled, convincing us that our exhaustion is a personal failure, not a systemic one. But if burnout is inevitable, is escape even possible? We'll explore the devastating consequences of this system, how it isolates us, alienates us, and ultimately destroys the very thing we are chasing: happiness. What happens when you push yourself to the limit, when you achieve everything you were told would make you happy and yet you feel nothing? This is the silent crisis of modern society. Byung-Chul Han argues that burnout is not just physical exhaustion. It is a collapse of the soul, a deep emptiness created by a system that demands infinite productivity, but never offers fulfillment in return. But here's where things get even worse. Burnout doesn't just leave us tired, it leaves us isolated. The loneliness of self-exploitation. Han describes today's world as a society of hyper-individualism, a place where people no longer connect deeply with one another because they are too busy competing. Think about it. In the past, people struggled together. They worked in factories, fought against oppression, and built social movements. There was solidarity, a sense of us. But in an achievement society, there is no us. Only me. You are your own boss. Sounds empowering, right? Until you realize it means you are also your own oppressor. You are responsible for your success. But that also means if you fail, you have no one to blame but yourself. You must work harder than everyone else. But what happens when you realize everyone else is working just as hard, and the competition never ends? This creates a paradoxical loneliness. You are surrounded by millions of people, yet you feel utterly alone. Social media makes it worse. Instead of forming deep connections, we scroll through endless feeds of other people's achievements. Everyone looks more successful, more productive, more alive than you. And so what do? You push yourself harder. More work, more self-improvement, more hustle. You tell yourself, I just need to catch up, but you never do. The hidden depression of success. Han calls this phenomenon depressive achievement. It is the feeling of being exhausted, isolated, and deeply unhappy even when everything looks perfect on the outside. You might recognize it. That influencer who seems to have it all but suddenly disappears for mental health reasons. The successful entrepreneur who quietly admits that money didn't bring happiness. The top student who gets perfect grades but feels like a hollow machine. These are not failures of individuals. They are symptoms of a broken system. A system that tells us, if you are tired, just optimize your life. A system that sells us productivity apps instead of peace. A system that convinces us that the solution to burnout is to work even harder. But here's the real question. If success doesn't bring happiness, then what will? Han knows we can escape the burnout trap, and why true freedom means learning to do nothing. If everything we were taught about success leads to exhaustion, if every attempt to fix burnout only makes it worse than what's left, Byung-Chul Han argues that modern society has created the perfect burnout trap. We are not simply tired, we are locked in an endless cycle where the only solution we are given is the very thing that's destroying us. Think about it. When people burn out, what are they told to do? Take a short vacation, then come back and work even harder. Try meditation, but only as a way to increase productivity. Improve time management as if burnout is just a scheduling problem. Han argues that this is the greatest deception of all. Modern society does not want to cure burnout. It only wants to manage it just enough to keep you working. Because a fully rested person, a person who is truly free, is dangerous. How we became our own slaves. Let's take a step back. How did we get here? Han argues that capitalism evolved into something far more advanced than we realize. In the past, people were forced to work under oppressive conditions. They had no choice. But today, we exploit ourselves willingly. We don't need a boss screaming at us, we set our own impossible goals. We don't need a factory whistle, we carry our work in our pockets, checking emails at midnight. We don't need chains, we are tied down by our own ambition. And here's the cruelest part. Because we believe we are free, we don't even realize we are prisoners. Han calls this the performance subject, a person who thinks they are in control, but in reality, they are just another cog in the machine. Consider the gig economy. It promises freedom. Be your own boss. Work from anywhere. Make money on your terms. But the reality? You're always working because your income depends on constant hustle. You have no security, no guaranteed pay, no protections. You compete against everyone else, driving yourself to work longer hours for less. In the end, the gig worker is no freer than the factory worker of the past. They have simply traded a visible cage for an invisible one. The illusion of rest. Even our idea of rest has been corrupted. Han argues that modern society has turned relaxation into another form of work. Think about the way we are told to relax. Self-care must be productive. You can't just enjoy a hobby, you must monetize it. Mindfulness must have a purpose. Meditation isn't about peace, it's about making you more efficient. Vacations must be optimized. You can't simply be in the moment, you must document it, share it, and turn it into content. Rest has become a side project for self-improvement, not a true escape. So how do we escape? Han's answer is radical: do nothing. Yes, you read that right. The most rebellious thing you can do in a burnout society is to stop performing. This doesn't mean quitting your job or abandoning your responsibilities. It means rejecting the idea that your worth is tied to your productivity. Han believes we need to rediscover true idleness, the kind that serves no purpose, no optimization, no profit. Take a walk with no destination. Read a book for no reason. Stare at the sky. Be still. Because in a world that demands constant movement, choosing to slow down is the ultimate act of resistance. The return to deep time. Han introduces another powerful concept, deep time. Modern life is dominated by fast, time-short attention spans, rapid work cycles, endless distractions. We never experience life fully because we are always rushing to the next thing. But deep time is different. It is unrushed, immersive, and free from the pressure to produce. Think about the last time you truly lost yourself in something. A long, aimless conversation. A slow, peaceful morning with no plans. A moment of pure stillness where time seemed to disappear. This is what Han argues we must reclaim. Not just rest but deep, unstructured time, where we exist for ourselves, not for work. But can we really escape? Here's the hard truth. Modern society will not change overnight. The burnout system is deeply embedded in how we work, think, and live. But small acts of rebellion matter. Every moment of stillness, every refusal to overwork, every choice to prioritize joy over productivity is a step toward freedom. But the real question is, will you allow yourself to escape? Or will you stay in the burnout trap, believing that just one more achievement, one more sacrifice, one more push will finally bring happiness? Because if Han is right, then the only way to win is to stop playing the game. By now, it's clear. Burnout isn't just about being overworked, it's about being trapped in a system that turns life itself into labor. Byung-Chul Han argues that we have been conditioned to believe that if we just push harder, optimize more, and sacrifice a little longer, we will finally reach fulfillment. But what if the real answer is to step away? This is the most difficult part, not because it's impossible, but because society does not want us to stop. The fear of doing nothing. Have you ever tried to do absolutely nothing? No phone, no distractions, no schedule, just stillness? For most people, it's unbearable. Within minutes, they feel restless, anxious, guilty. They reach for their phone. They feel the urge to check emails, to plan, to be productive. This is proof of how deeply we have been programmed. Han calls this achievement anxiety, the feeling that every second must be filled with measurable progress. And yet, the greatest thinkers, artists, and philosophers in history understood the power of doing nothing. Nietzsche wandered in solitude for hours, letting his mind roam freely. Albert Camus spoke of embracing life's absurdity instead of constantly trying to rationalize it. The ancient Stoics practiced stillness, knowing that clarity comes when we stop forcing answers. But today, the moment we stop, we panic. We feel like we're falling behind even though we don't know what we're chasing. The culture of endless hustle. To understand how deeply ingrained this is, look at our culture. Workplaces reward overwork, not balance. The person who stays late is seen as more dedicated, even if they are less effective. Social media glorifies hustle. You see posts about grinding, optimizing, and pushing harder but rarely about resting. We compete even in our free time. Fitness, hobbies, even relaxation itself is turned into a performance. The result? We never truly live. We just manage time. Han argues that this is a sickness disguised as ambition. And like any sickness, the first step to recovery is recognizing the problem. The true meaning of freedom. Han's philosophy doesn't tell us to reject all ambition. Instead, it asks us to redefine what freedom actually means. We think freedom means doing anything we want. But real freedom, Han says, is also about being able to do nothing at all without guilt, without anxiety, without feeling like we are wasting time. This is the true rebellion against burnout culture. Choosing to rest, even when society tells you to keep going. Finding joy in experiences that serve no purpose. Detaching your self-worth from your productivity. Because you are not a machine. Your value is not measured by output. Your existence does not need to be justified by achievements. You don't need permission to just be. The final question. Byung-Chul Han offers us a path out of burnout. But the real challenge isn't just understanding his ideas, it's having the courage to apply them. So the question is, can you break free? Can you step away from the pressure, from the endless race, from the addiction to productivity? Or will you keep running until one day you look back and realize that you never truly lived at all? Final thoughts, breaking the burnout cycle. So where does this leave us? Byung-Chul Han's message is clear. Burnout is not an individual failure, it is a systemic condition. You are not tired because you are weak. You are tired because modern society has made exhaustion the norm. From the moment we enter the world, we are taught that our worth is tied to our productivity, that rest is laziness, that we must always be improving, competing, optimizing. And yet, no matter how hard we push, true fulfillment always seems just out of reach. But what if the real problem isn't that we aren't working hard enough, but that we are working for the wrong things? Han challenges us to step back and reclaim our time, our peace, and our presence, to rediscover life beyond schedules and deadlines, to break free from the addiction to productivity and embrace the beauty of simply being. That doesn't mean abandoning ambition or giving up on success. It means learning to define success on your own terms, to realize that life is not a checklist, and that some of its greatest moments, love, creativity, reflection, joy, happen not when we are pushing forward, but when we allow ourselves to slow down. Because in the end, no one looks back on their life and wishes they had worked more. They wish they had lived more. So ask yourself, are you living, or are you just managing time? If you found this discussion thought-provoking, there's so much more to explore. In our other videos, we break down the ideas of great thinkers like Nietzsche, Camus, and Kierkegaard, uncovering the hidden forces that shape the way we think, live, and exist in the modern world. So if you want to understand not just how to escape burnout, but how to live with true purpose and freedom, make sure to check out our next video. Because breaking free is only the first step. The real question is, what will you do with your freedom?